The Rosen Report, sports like never before. Brought to you by Gooch Live and Paramount Sports Management. Here's Rosie.
Good. Well, I got a phone call as I'm opening the line. Sorry about that. Good Thursday afternoon. It is the Rosen Report. We're back. This week we came back Tuesday and Thursday. Today we're going to talk goaltending. Jamie McGuire from McGuire Goaltending was going to be with us. Unfortunately, he had to back out at the last minute. Got the great producer, director, the Fanshawe kid, Jordan LaRoche, who's a hell of a goalie himself. We're going to talk some goaltending, who we think is going to be there this year, who we think maybe will have an off year. Just a lot of a goaltending for the next 25 minutes or so. If you're watching and you want to send us a note, by all means, send us a note on who you think is going to be the goalie this year that we're going to go, wow. I know Matthew Meisner's always watching. Jordan Stadge-John's watching. Robert Wine. Anybody, if you're out there and you want to add to the show, please do so. Let's bring him up now. The producer, the Fanshawe kid, Jordan LaRoche. Jordan.
Hey, Rosie, how are you?
I'm okay. I don't know what happened there. I thought I pressed all my buttons off, and then a phone call came up. And you know me, I'm not very technical. I don't know how that happened, but it happened. We're here on a Thursday afternoon. You're in London, Ontario, home of the great London Knights. I'm just outside. There's Johnny, and there's Robert. I'm just outside of Newmarket in the beautiful little Sharon, Ontario. So, George, before we get going, training camp's opened. Everybody's going through medicals. And how do you think the goaltenders take, being a goalie, how do you think the goaltenders take the medical days as opposed to the other players?
You're not so much competing, like say like the beep test and like other physical testing that they do. You're not so much competing against the other skaters because it's a totally different physical skill set you need. So I think that the goalies are just trying to compete against themselves, compete against their numbers from last year. So it's a lot more of an internal battle than it is with the rest of the team.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I remember when we had our training camps or our combines, there was that competitiveness in my mind going like, oh, I want to beat some of the young guys on the VO test and that. But realistically, you're talking to forwards. There's maybe, 20 guys trying out for 12 spots. The defense, there's, 15 guys trying out for 7 spots. And the goalies, you might have 4, sometimes 5 goalies trying out for 2 spots. But most teams realistically have their number one guy pegged in. He can go to camp, just relax, get himself in shape. Well, most players now, they come to camp in shape. It's not like years ago where they come to camp to get into shape. So saying that, let's start with right here in Toronto. That's where we're the closest to the Maple Leafs. They get rid of their mainstay for quite a few years now. I think 4 or 5 years, Freddie.
Around there.
Yeah, so he's gone. We'll talk about him in a second. And now the Toronto Maple Leafs start with what a lot of people say is 2 very good backup goalies. Not really ever given the chance to be number 1 goalies in Peter Mrazek and Jack Campbell. I like both of them if they stay healthy. What's your thoughts on the 2 of them and how Sheldon Keefe will use them, Jordan?
I was never the biggest fan of Jack Campbell. I didn't watch a ton of Toronto last year, so maybe that's just part of it. But Peter Mrazek, I think this guy's a stud. Over the last few years in Carolina, he's kind of had a 1A, 1B role, sometimes even as a backup to Nedeljkovic. But I think this guy's just as good as anyone. A 2.06 goals against and a 9.56 on top of just his physical stature is. I really like Peter Mrazek.
Yeah, I do too. I think if he stays healthy, Toronto's going to be extremely happy. I've got a couple of buddies who are big Leaf fans, but they don't follow a lot of other teams, and they're going, what's with Mrazek? Where'd he come from? And well, he's been around quite a while. He's not a kid, and he's had some really good numbers over a fair amount of years. And the key is if he stays healthy. If he stays healthy and Campbell stays healthy, it seemed like Campbell, every time the wind blows, he's out for 2-3 games. So if the two of them can stay healthy, I think the Leafs will have solid goaltending. But health is a huge thing. Let's take Mrazek, where he came from, and swing down to Carolina. This team had 3 really good goaltenders, lost all 3 of them. How does that happen, Jordan?
I mean, the whole Nedeljkovic trade just made absolute zero sense to me. He was their guy in the playoffs. He was their guy for most of the regular season as well. And he played really well as a rookie coming into the league and play the way he did. Like, not many guys have done that. So it's just a really weird situation. And with Mrazek, again, I just think that, again, Carolina just shot themselves in the foot here, I think.
Yeah, and they had Reimer too, James Reimer. Yeah. Where did Reimer go? I'm looking all over, and I know he's
I have no idea. I will tell you soon.
Yeah, I think he went out west somewhere, but I know he's playing somewhere. For some reason, in my mind, he said San Jose. Yeah. I thought he went to San Jose. So they're losing all 3 of their goalies, all 3 that started last year. That's very, very odd for a team to all 3 goalies be gone. So their goalies now, they've got Retna, who's solid. Again, not incredible, but not terrible. And Freddie Anderson, I think, is he's kind of a weird type of situation because he, to a lot of people, was a number 1 guy, in Anaheim and then coming to Toronto. But for some reason last year, it seemed like the Toronto Maple Leafs organization and fan base lost total confidence in him. Do you think that's true? Or?
Yeah, and I think that kind of played a part in it's kind of shaky season. I mean, he had over nearly 3 goals against and below a .900 save percentage, and I think those numbers are not going to cut it to start with. But like my dad says here, Anderson can't win the big game, right? 100%. We see that every year in the playoffs, and even at times in the regular season, he can't steal a game, especially when they need it. And having the fan base and the team lose all their confidence in him, that's got to weigh on you mentally at some point as well.
Yeah, and I think the big thing too that your dad made the point is with Anderson is he always lets that one bad one in. Like he makes 5 or 6 incredible stops, and then the one sneaks in from the half wall, from the sideboards, just trickles through his pad or through his stick, and no matter what, people, if you're watching this, okay, no matter what, speaking to you as a goaltender, you played in a few Olympics, Jordan, you played goal, no matter what. The players on the bench, if you let a stinker in, I'm telling a stinker, they're not going to say anything to you. But deep down, oh my God, their heads will drop. The confidence will go down. That's just a fact. No doubt about it. So when a goalie, I want your opinion on this. So when an Anderson lets one against Columbus, let's say the year before, he let a couple of real stinkers in. What do you think the bench is doing? Like body language, it's just not good.
Yeah, they're up in arms. They're slouched over. I mean, you definitely see that reaction as a goalie. I mean, there's been times where I've done that, and you look over the bench and you're just kind of like, yeah, I guess what do I do now? I guess it's kind of you got to move on, but. In a hockey market like Toronto, it is hard to just move on from a bad goal.
Yeah. Hey, I want to ask you a question here, and John and Robert, Matthew, anybody watching, weigh in on this too. Do you think Toronto's the toughest market in the 32 now NHL teams to play goal? Is it Toronto? Is it Montreal? There's some areas in the NHL where I don't think it really matters. I don't think a goalie lets a stinker in. People even understand it. But what's your thoughts? Is Toronto, in my opinion, Toronto's the hardest place for a goalie to actually win the crowd over?
I think it's right up there with Montreal. I think you have to put Montreal in that conversation as well. Just the way fans were really upset with Carey Price throughout the whole season with him being hurt. The really kind of lackluster play that we don't expect from a Carey Price. So, and they were calling for his name, but he managed to redeem himself in the playoffs. But it's the similar situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, let's swing over a little to to the Midwest area, and let's talk about my Chicago Blackhawks. I want your take on this. Fleury looks like he's happy now. I saw some photographs of him with his new equipment on, with his nice number 29 in the Blackhawk jersey. What's your thoughts on the Hawks this year? They got a great, young, talented Finnish kid who now doesn't have the pressure on him that he did last year because he's not a number one kid yet. He's a kid. But for him to learn under a guy like Fleury, who is, in my opinion, a Hall of Famer. What's your thought, Jordan?
Yeah, and I think we saw the reports that Fleury might consider this a one and done, but I mean I think this Chicago team can surprise a couple people and maybe sneak into the playoffs. But in terms of Fleury, I mean he's done it all at this point, right? Stanley Cup, gold medal, and I think this is just another chapter in his book that he's gonna come there. He's gonna play well. It's just an issue of if he stays.
Yeah, and you know what? If he has a good year this year and really teaches, I think the 1 year will be great. I honestly think he's going to stay. You know, money talks, and I think he's going to stay. But that's another thing for let's just play the season, not worry. People worry too much. You know, they're talking about, you know, even in Toronto now with Riley. You know, just let's see what happens. Play the year out and see what happens. By Christmas, we're going to know what happens. If the Hawks are having a really good year and he's happy and his family's happy, he'll re-up, he'll stay. And if he's not, then he's given the NHL a ton. So, I wanted to, since we talked about Carey Price and now about Marc-Andre Fleury, let's swing into the Olympics for a second. Right now, it looks like the Olympics are going to happen in February in Beijing. Hopefully, if it happens, I'm going to be happy because then the Paralympics are going to happen in March, and I want to get back in the broadcast booth. Is it a 100% no-brainer that it's Price and Fleury, 1, 2, and the third guy, they're going to take a young kid? Like, your thoughts, if you're the GM of that team.
Hey, how do you not, right? I mean, just based off last season alone, you have the Vezina winner, and you have the guy who probably should have won the Hart Trophy, or it's not the Hart, the Conn Smythe in the playoffs. I mean, it's almost a no-brainer, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. And you know what? The thing is that people don't understand is who, if it's not Fleury or Price, like who are you going to take? You don't need a goalie to stand on his head with Team Canada. They've got so much talent. Their defense is going to be incredible and mobile. They're going to have a really solid fourth line. Their top 6 forwards are world class. They're all going to be Hall of Famers. So do you need a guy? How many shots realistically are Canada going to give up in a game?
At most like 30. That's even being generous.
Yeah, I'm going to say 20. If they give up more than 20, it's going to be a lot. You know, you might have a team like Russia or the States with some high-flying forwards, and we'll see what happens with the States. You know, Jack Eichel, will he be ready to play in the Olympics? I don't think so. If you had to take a third goalie right now, Jordan, with your knowledge of the NHL and the Canadian goalies out there, if the deadline was right now, who's your third goalie?
I think I was going to say Carter Hart, but again, with him, you just don't know how this year is going to play out with him. So I think he's a guy you have to wait on. But Aaron Becker put a comment in for Mackenzie Blackwood out of New Jersey. He's played really well. It's just the only thing with him is that some nights he'll come out, make 35 saves, let him 1 goal, and have a great game. But other nights, like 20 shots, like 5 goals against. So it's just too up and down. If he can find some consistency in his game, I think he's the guy.
Yeah. Hey, that's a great one, a real great one. You know, I saw him last summer. He's neighbors, I'm pretty sure, with Malcolm Sunderland in Thunder Bay, a good friend. And I think he was at a barbecue in their place. He's a really good choice. I personally, if it was today, your third goalie's not going to play. I would take Carter Hart. Only because I think Carter Hart's in this situation right now where he's going to either get better and come up to that level that we all thought as a Canadian junior, or he's going to be done and he's going to have an American Hockey League career. I think by having him around those players and a Fleury and a Price, he could take it back to that level. Philadelphia, unfortunately, is a city where goalies go to die. And they haven't had a goalie there since Pelle Lindbergh. Your dad would remember him, who was amazing. So I'm not 100% sure. Hey, let's go into surprises right now. We're about halfway done the show now. What if I had to ask you right now? We haven't even played our first exhibition game. Who's your surprise goalie that you think this guy he might start off on a fire?
This could be a bit of a stretch, but so the Dallas has 4 goalies in their pool right now, and yeah, he didn't have a great year last year, but Braden Holtby, this guy won the Vezina 2-3 years ago at most, so I think he comes back after the wash of his time in Vancouver. Fights for the starting role in Dallas with Ben Bishop, Anton Khudobin, and Jake Ottinger. Beats them out, and he's the opening starter.
I love that. I think that is a man. I got a check mark beside Holtby because I loved him in Washington.
Yeah.
He just didn't seem to get that fit, that comfortable fit in Vancouver. And but is it great that you brought that up? What does Dallas do? You've got 4 qualified goalies. You can't carry 4 goalies, and you don't want any of these guys really going down to the American Hockey League. But who if Holtby's your guy, what do the other three guys do? Obviously, one has to be your backup. Do you make a deal?
I think so. I think just from that list, you keep Ottinger. He has the young upside. He played for Team USA at the World Championships as well this year. So I think you got to look at trading Ben Bishop and Anton Khudobin. It's just they're a little older now. But I still think Ben Bishop has a few good years left of them, and so does Khudobin.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's some team that's going to be looking for sure. And there are teams that definitely are they'll start their season, but I don't think they're happy. I don't think there's a few teams happy. Let's go to Boston and talk about a guy named Tuukka Rask, who could have been a Toronto Maple Leaf. A lot of people want to forget about that. The Justin Pogge whole thing where, they thought he was the next coming, the next Messiah because he had an incredible World Juniors. Never worked out. He never played even a handful of games in the NHL. Rask is hurt. He's been hurt. He had controversy with not wanting to play in the bubble with his family, young family. You made a note on our pre-show notes that I thought was incredible. Perfect opportunity for Boston to just sit and wait. Christmas time, they get a beautiful Christmas present and re-sign Rask. Is that where he stays? Is he so content with I'm playing in Boston or I'm staying home?
I think so. I mean, he's been a Bruin his whole career, and in all his interviews, he does have kind of some deeper feeling for being in Boston and being a Bruin. So I think it'd be really hard for him to leave personally. But at the same time, I mean, Boston can't really wait till Christmas because I think someone will want to get him. People are going to send him offers, but again, you're waiting until Christmas to sign a guy where that takes up cap space. So,
yeah, I agree with you. Hey, let's go out to the new team, the 32nd team in the year, the brand new team, the Seattle Kraken. Love that name, the Loch Ness Monster of Seattle. And we got a good friend of the show and a good friend of the Gooch Network in Chris Dreger. I love the kid. Him and Grubauer seems like a pretty good 1-2 match. Like, what your thoughts?
I think that they're pretty even. Grubauer obviously had an incredible year last year. I believe is a Vezina nominee as well, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and then you throw in Chris Dreger, who almost came out of nowhere last year. I was talking to my dad about this. Dreger, we still don't really know, right? He's only had like 1 full year in the league. So we kind of have to wait to see how he plays this year. But I think he can do it. I think he can play well. But I do think Grubauer will be the opening night starter there just based off last year. And he has a little more NHL experience.
I agree with you. I think getting Grubauer was huge to, when they first had the team, they had a bunch of different things and it looked like they were going to give Dreger that number one spot. And, Dreger, when he was with the Ottawa Senators, played a little, had a really good couple of years in the American Hockey League. And then he started playing well in Florida and kind of took a little bit of the job away from Bobrovsky. They brought up Spencer Knight, who was like, the sweetheart of the USA hockey program. I love this because I think it gives Dreger the opportunity to slowly slide into a nice role here. He doesn't have to do it opening night. And I think just like you, that Grubauer is the starter in Seattle in game one.
Just quickly, just because Colorado has never really had much playoff success, and my dad throws there that Grubauer can't win a big game either. It's still kind of an unknown, but I mean, he does have a bit of a point there because Colorado got beat up by Vegas pretty easily in the playoffs. So, yeah, having a good regular season helps a little bit, but if you can't get it done in the playoffs, what good are you?
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there, but I think Seattle, it's their first year, and I think they're just having a good year and getting their fan base in tech, is going to be a big thing. I don't think if they make the playoffs, there's going to be some top hockey playing. Like people that just think that their team's going to make the playoffs. This is, 4 divisions of 8 teams. This is not going to be an easy thing to do. But since you talked about Dreger and we started back to where he had a little bit of success last year, let's go to Florida. Florida now, Bobrovsky, the big-time guy out of Columbus, signs for huge money. Doesn't really have a great year, a good year, some real good games, some average games. And then the sweetheart comes up out of nowhere. I remember us talking about it. Where's Spencer Knight? Like, what are they? Like, that was the future. And it looked like the future was now when they went to the playoffs. Your thoughts on Spencer Knight? Can he be the number one in Florida, Jordan?
I mean, I think so. I mean, Florida had enough confidence in him to play him in the last couple of games against Tampa Bay in the first round. And, with Bobrovsky, I mean, coming off that year, we don't know how good he's going to look coming into this year. So I think Spencer Knight could be in a very similar situation that Dreger was in last year. Bobrovsky doesn't play well. You start getting Spencer Knight some more ice time, and eventually he might just edge that job out of Bobrovsky. And then the other issue with that is, do you keep Bobrovsky on the payroll because he's $10 million?
Well, who's going to want him? You're going to have to, if you trade him, you're going to have to eat a lot of that contract, like a Jack Eichel type of thing.
Yeah, and again, Aaron puts another good comment in there. We just need to see him play more, right?
Yeah,
and I think with more game experience, he will only get better, and maybe even take that starting job next year.
Yeah, well, I think he has a lock, whether it's the number 2 or number 3 goalie for U.S. in the Olympics. He's one of the best 3 U.S. goalies in the league, in my opinion. Anyways, let's go to, where did I want to talk about now? Let's go to your New York Rangers. Okay, right. Talk to me about I think very qualified, solid, up and coming goaltenders in the Rangers system. Your thoughts on that? Not just as a Ranger fan, but as a goaltender.
Igor Shesterkin is an absolute stud. When he kind of broke into the league, he won 11 of his first 12 or 13 games. His first NHL start, beat Colorado, made 45 saves against the Avalanche to beat them in overtime. I mean, this guy, just since he's coming into the league, has just been on a tear. Last year, he took a little bit of a step back, but the Rangers were still trying to figure out a couple things, and he started picking that play up again towards the end of the year. And then you go to the other side with Alexander Georgiev. Similar kind of thing. He's just been been really consistent and really good throughout his whole career. They both control their rebounds very well. They're both crazy athletic. But the glaring issue is that we can't keep both of them long term. Right. Georgiev was rumored to be in the package for Jack Eichel, and I think if they are going to keep one, it's going to be Shesterkin. But I mean, I'm happy with either one of them at this point. And then you get rid of probably Georgiev, and then Keith Kincaid comes up, and Keith Kincaid's a serviceable backup as well.
Very much, yeah. Mr. Kincaid, they called him, from the old Partridge Family. You would remember that. That's a long time ago. Your dad would. Let's go to since we're all weaving in from one to the other. Let's weave back to Colorado. Colorado Avalanche, an incredible team, tons of talent, great forward, solid D, good coaching. Look like, they're the team. They won the President's Trophy last year. Yeah, they were tied with Vegas, but they got the President's Trophy on more wins. Could this be the year that they finally have that number one in Darcy Kemper that can take them to the top of the mountain and win a Stanley Cup?
If he can stay healthy, I think so. He's never started more than 30 games anywhere in his career. So, I mean, if he can come out and play the way he did last year in that tandem in Arizona, I think Colorado goes all the way. It's just an issue if he can handle that workload and stay healthy. But I think Darcy Kemper is as good as anyone in the league, representing Canada as well, winning the gold medal. This guy's a stud.
I agree with you. We're not going to get into our predictions until we're not even close to the start of the year. But right now, if somebody put a gun to my head, I would say Colorado and the Islanders in the Stanley Cup final. If that could happen the way the divisions are aligned, I don't even know if that's how they're going to work the playoff structure. But to me, Colorado and the Islanders are the two teams. Be really careful if you're picking players, because these two teams could go a long, long way. Let's go to Philly when we were talking about Carter Hart. They've got Martin Jones, who's another guy who came up with a lot of potential, never really lived up to it. Can Jones and Hart take Philly? Because Philly's got a solid team. Like, they could go a long way, but I'm not sold on these two guys in net.
Yeah, I mean, Martin Jones, I was never really sold on. He had that whole kind of fiasco where he went from LA to Boston for like 30 minutes and then back to San Jose. And I think that was probably the highlight of his career, because he hasn't done much outside of that. And I mean, again, he did get San Jose to the Stanley Cup final, but that team was very good. Like prime Joe Thornton, prime Patrick Marleau. So it's kind of tough. And you look at that 3.3 goals against, and again, below a 900 save percentage as your starter. It's not going to be good enough. But I do think it can work out for Carter Hart. Just give him a little fire under him. They bring in this guy who's been a starter for most of his career, and just kind of get him motivated, get him back, get him a little more competitive, a little more edgy.
Yeah, I agree with you. Okay, let's end the show on both of us picking one. What?
Can we do one more?
Of course we can. Absolutely.
It's from the comments, but I do want to talk about this one a little bit. Thatcher Demko and Michael DiPietro. Because I think both these guys are just studs. And I've said it for a while. Vancouver has the best goalie prospect pool I think I've ever seen. Demko, Hoey Baker winner, DiPietro, Memorial Cup winner, and Michael Gartig, who's the nominee for the Hoey Baker the year Demko won. So all three of these guys can take a starting role at any second. It will be Demko to start opening night, but that could change at any moment.
Yeah, that's a great one too. And Demko, if I am correct, Demko is American, is he not?
He is, yeah.
So they've got a pretty solid pool. They've got Hellebuck in Winnipeg, who's obviously going to be the number one goalie for the U.S. in the Olympics. I would think. Demko's there, and then who else do we just talked about? Spencer Knight. They've got a solid little niche of goaltending. Let's talk for a second then about Vancouver, like you said. So we've got a very solid start in the goal leading up. What's going on with Vancouver? Pettersson is not signed, correct?
Pettersson and Hughes are still unsigned. And they don't go anywhere without those guys.
No, so how do they go into the start of the season without those two young studs being signed? Like Jim Benning, give your head a shake. You got to pay these guys. They're going to be potential studs.
Yeah, and it's a similar situation that we were talking about kind of off camera with Brady Tkachuk. They offer them both 8-year deals, but again, these guys want shorter terms now. so they can make more money when that salary cap jumps. But like Vancouver doesn't go anywhere without Pettersson at least.
Yeah. Well, I wish that word loyalty came back into the professional sports scene. I understand, believe me, that these guys have got a short career. They're looking to make as much as they can for them and their families for down the road. You never know with injuries. But there's got to be a touch of loyalty, man. If you're 21, 22 years old and a team offers you 8 years at $8 million a year, how much more greed can there be out there? That's my thoughts. Let's end it on one, just one. One guy right now, you're going to start the year and you're going, wow, I'm picking a goalie in a fantasy pool. This is my guy. Who are you picking?
Geez.
You want me to go first then?
Yeah.
I'm going with Fleury. I know people are going to say, yeah, you love the Hawks, Rosie. Yeah, I do love the Hawks, but I'm realistic. I know when they're good and I know when they're bad. I know when they're average. And I think that with the way that team played last year, with getting the additions they have this year, getting Taves back, getting Jones. I know you think it's a lot of money for him, but we didn't have to pay the money. That's the Wirtz family. I honestly think that Marc-Andre Fleury will take that team to the start of the year anyways. We're talking about the start to a level that we're going, wow, this is going back to the 10 years of 10, 13, and 15 when the Hawks won the cup. They're not going to win the cup, so let's not get too crazy, but I think Fleury's the guy. Who's yours?
I think oh, geez. I'm still not totally sure, but I think I'm going to go with Peter Mrazek. I think he keeps up that play that he was doing in Carolina, and I think Toronto could go maybe back to the playoffs. I think maybe another first-round exit due for the Leafs, but I think Peter Mrazek will be a little more sturdy than Freddie Anderson.
I don't disagree with you. I think Leaf fans out there, if you can say a prayer before the season starts and ask whoever is up there making these things go to keep Mr. Mrazek healthy, you got yourself a hell of a number one goalie. But health is a huge thing. So, hey, George, great show. Always love talking hockey with you. We'll do this once a month. We'll just talk goaltending. You know, there's always shows. I know with you and Gooch, you talk about all the game and everything. But we got to do something for the goaltenders. You know, we're in that union. Yeah. It's a very small union, Jordan. So once a month, we'll talk just goaltending, get guys out there to send us any questions you want about the goalies, and we'll try to get some goalie studs on through the year. But thanks for another great show. Appreciate it.
All right. See you, Rosie.
Yep. Wow. Nice Thursday afternoon, talking goaltending, talking, we didn't, I just saw that Charlene said Robin Leonard. We'll get into that. We'll talk about things like that as the year goes on. The year hasn't even started yet. They just did medicals. This is a great time of the year. Baseball's winding into the playoffs. Football's starting up. Basketball will start soon. Hockey's getting going. What a great time to be a sports fan. I love it. Thank you for watching. Please stick around for some great shows as we lead into the winter. Fall just started yesterday. Have yourself a great day. Take care of each other and take care of yourself. And be smart. Be healthy. God bless.
You've been listening to the Rosen Report, sports like never before, with your host, Rosie. Brought to you by Gooch Live and Paramount Sports Management.